Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. 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 Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
All right. Let's get started. I'll switch up the background music. I will turn it down. Thanks everyone for joining. If you don't know me, I'm Stenz 31. I am Dictator-in-Chief of Absolute Horsepower and Photo Finish Live. previously played the other game as Murphy Law Farms. Very modest investment, very good results. Early summer of 2021 was gone before a lot of you even joined that game, and have partnered up with some big names in that game that you would recognize. I'm going to try my spin at a beginner's guide. There's two things you need to know in that respect. This is not my best subject. And I myself am a beginner when it comes to streaming. So I see David's in the chat. David is a legend. He's the one that's going to be in the chat. He's going to be the one answering the questions. And I do trust his instincts and the guidance that he gives you. Certainly, there are ways to get resource materials to the game. I think if you type noob in the chat, it'll take you to a whole host of PFL team approved links. And I think there's some good content in there. But this started about an hour ago, maybe, that someone informed me that someone I highly respect in the Web3 space was very serious about getting into the game and was looking for content. And I immediately looked at myself and said, I hadn't put my best foot forward in content creation when it comes to new people. I certainly think I share my thought process at a very high level for our stable and go into nuances that aren't always relevant for a new person. And I think although some of the content that exists out there is probably pretty good, it's probably been a bit since we've brushed it off and brought it up to speed. What would be different for sure from a lot of that content is we are racing our first foals, which you'll learn to know is being considered crop one. And every set of foals that is born would be an additional number on that. So next month's racers will be crop 2. Crop 1 will still likely be racing. Gen 0 still may be racing. So we will get into all those terms. But let's start where you would start if you're new. I will share my screen. And because I'm new to streaming and because I'm lazy, there was no prep work that went into this. In the hour between when I was informed that the person was very serious and wanted content, I decided to go walk the dog, take a shower, grab a beer or two. So we're going to do this very much live. But I think you can see my screen. I will put myself in a smaller format. All right, if you sign up or go to photofinish.live and you click login on the top right, this is the page it gives you. I don't know if Bold Prairie is the stable name it suggests for you, but there's probably something in there. Signing up for Photo Finish Live, I think, is akin to signing up for a lot of Web 2 based things. They've done a great job of making this Web 2 friendly from a sign up and user standpoint. I will skip that. I think you've seen that whether you've signed up for DraftKings or you've signed up for any other types of online gaming. Doxed myself there. That's why I normally would do some prep work, but I think anybody that would have done any research would know who I was anyway, so not too concerned about that. So I've logged in as Absolute Horsepower, which is our stable. If I go into clicking on the stable name, which when you sign up, you'll see the same type of thing. Your silks will default to, I think, a white and a red. You've got your stable settings here. You can customize your silks. You can upload your own logo. Initially, I didn't think that was a big deal. I think it's proven to be a pretty big deal, and people are pretty proud of their silks. Shout out to Doughboy, maybe the best silks in the game. Doxed myself a second time, doxed my region. You have account settings, and the one that I wanted to go to here is you have enable multi-factor authentication options. Withdrawal limits with Crown and Derby that you can contract a team on. When you can link your Discord. We're not yet linked to Twitter. Our stable is Abominable Snowman in the Discord. If you're trying to reach our stable in the Discord, that is the only way you'll be able to do it. My personal Discord is Stenz31. Feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. But I went to this page not to dox myself, but to say that if you were considering investing heavily in the game and wanted to have additional controls in place, that, well, let's click it and see what we get. I don't want to do that yet if it doesn't make me. So you can turn, oh man. That wasn't supposed to happen. There was 3 options, and there probably needs to be more. We'll get there. But if I can see it quick and leave it, I won't beat it. It's buying, selling, and withdrawals. There needs to be one in regards to claimers. I think the team will add that. I think they know that. But if you're a new investor in the game and want to invest a sizable portion but don't know who to trust or don't trust anybody, because that's a good practice to be a part of, you can turn 2FA on, and anytime a person tries to buy a horse, sell a horse, or withdraw funds, whether that's Crown or Derby, they would have to have your 2FA code. So there's some controls in place there. Like I said, the other one that probably needs to be added is you would want one in regards to entering a claiming race. We'll talk about claiming races when we get to the race type, but claiming races are very akin to truly selling your horse, or at least making your horse available for sale. So I think that's an easy thing for them to add. Next things when you're starting out is there is a learn to play section on the website. There's a join Discord. You're probably going to get better help there than I'm going to give you tonight. I'll try my best. But they put some prep time into that. They put some review into that. They probably didn't dox themselves in it. So check that. And again, join the Discord. I think there's a lot of people that are willing help. In any Web3 game, there are certainly people that are looking to capitalize as well. Be careful in what you do. And I think like the easiest rule of thumb I would have is just get second and third opinions on most things that you do. Top of mind, but not an exclusive list. People in the community that I think are in the Discord very regularly, that are very knowledgeable, that I trust, are David, HRC's in the chat here. And Monkey Tennis, I would put up there next to anybody as well. Certainly there's people like Lacey, Mo that are moderators, and they are great at it. And Mo is the best race caller that I've seen in Web3 gaming. But when it comes to high-level decision-making and valuations on horses, no offense, Mo, I don't think he'll take any either. But I think I would reach out to Monkey Tennis, Peeb, RVA Racing, which is Vijay. Ghost, when he's not banned, I think is a pretty good contact as well. Just reach out and ask. My rule of thumb, and I've said this on previous streams before, is if a horse is on the marketplace and it's been on the marketplace for, call it 30 minutes, maybe not every OG, maybe not every whale stable has seen that listing, but I bet you 2 or 3 of them have. And if it's been there for 30 minutes, they decided that that wasn't for them. And if they decided that wasn't for them, that doesn't mean it's not a good buy or it wouldn't be a good piece for a different stable. It just means that's not the right horse for them at that time. So when you go to ask Monkey Tennis or you go to ask RVA Racing, 1, chances are they've seen the listing. And 2, you're not alerting them, even if they hadn't, to, oh my God, there's this great deal out there. Because even if those 2 hadn't seen it, like I said, 2 or 3 other people probably had decided this wasn't the deal of a lifetime. So you're not probably squandering your own deal by asking for advice. And I think that's the best way to do it. And then networking, which if you're in Web3 and have made any successes or still made it to Web3 from 2021 to 2023, I think you probably are successful in networking. So use your network and build out your own Photo Finish Live network as well of people you can trust, people you can ask questions to, people who would give honest advice. Networking is going to be the best way to find a horse anyways. Certainly there's going to be marketplace snipes. There's going to be claiming snipes. But there's a lot of stables, ourselves included. If I click Marketplace and I go to My Listings, we don't have a single horse listed. If I go to My Stable, you can see we have 151 horses. I do not need 151 horses. I could sell horses. I currently don't have any horses that I feel like I need to move, and therefore I don't have anything listed. Now, should I have stuff listed to create supply for available buyers? Sure, but that's another reason that you should probably just network, because I think there's other big stables out there, whether it's OEB, One Eyed Blind, shout out to him, or Mr. B. They both have, which is Secretariat Stables, they both have more horses than us. Lacey, which of my kidneys do you need if I want to borrow one of your horses' booms? Yeah, so that's the other part of networking too, and it takes me 11 minutes to get away from PFL 101, but I'll only make a short trek away from the 101 level. There are people that are making deals to sell if they have an unbred but retired filly or mare in that case, which we don't have any in that case. They're all bred. But this could be pregnant. Diana could be pregnant, and I could have pre-sold the foal to someone else, regardless of whatever the gender or the grade outcome or the preference outcome would be, things you would know at the start of the next season. I can gamble and sell it to someone for a certain price. And that's not part of the site's functionality. Those deals exist. I think they're incredibly risky, and therefore they are completely off limits from the PFL 101 level. I think that's probably check into the PFL 601 or 701 classes. But let's get back on track and talk about things you need to know when you're starting from brand new. So there's a couple windows on the top. I'll even show our stuff here. It's just easier if you can see it. This is all the crown we have. We can't dump on bozos' heads with our crown, even being a top volume racing stable. Our entire balance of crown is 2,388 crowns. So if you want to take that as a bullish argument for crown, not financial advice, but that's all I have to dump on you guys if I wanted to. Two tabs here. There's tickets and there's select wallet. Now, I started this by saying the team's done an incredibly good job of making this more or less a Web 2 game, but trying to embrace aspects of Web 3, which is a tough balancing act to make. If you bought a ticket, whether that's off like Tensor or Magic Eden, are basically the only two marketplaces on Solana these days. If you bought one, it would show up here. You would go there, or sorry, you could actually go down to redeem on the bottom left where my mouse is and redeem those tickets. So you'd see your account here. You'd go to redeem on the bottom left, and you would redeem that ticket. That would allow you to bring a horse into the game. Keep in mind, the horse you're bringing into the game is 6 years old. These horses have been aging, whether or not they're just a ticket or whether they've been racing on the track. But you could redeem them there. You would get to name them at that point. And if it was a filly, you could retire it to breed. If it was a colt, you could race it. If it was a filly, you could race it if you wanted to. I think in large part, a lot of the filly population has retired and bred based on kind of economic incentives that exist. But if you wanted to top up your Derby balance, which Derby is a USDC equivalent, I don't know all the security behind the scenes. I'm sure there's some reference materials in Learn to Play that talks about how Derby funds are segregated from third-time funds or all that jazz. If you want to read up on that, do your due diligence. But if I click simply on the Derby tab, it brings me to my transactions. You can see a few failed picks in the third-time championship. Shout out to Night Saturn. What wasn't a failed pick is our three horses that we picked were Night Saturn, Elvis, and the horse from Two Jacks stable. I blank on the horse name. So we came out ahead there a little bit. Get your wagering access in. We'll try to cover that a little bit later. But I've got two yellow, or as I would say, goldenrod buttons here. Fund and withdrawal. So you would go to fund. It would give you an option to enter the amount you want. Derby is 80-1, akin to Xbox 360 points back in the day. So this 8,000 Derby option is $1,000. This 4,000 Derby option is $500, or you can do a custom amount. We've certainly done. No, never mind. That must be $100. 8,000 is $100. 4,000 is $50. So if I put in 32,000, that tells me my estimated price is 400 USDC as USDC on the Solana blockchain, which isn't super hard to navigate. If you've got questions on that, ask. People will help you. There is a 1% fee. So if I was trying to deposit 32,000 Derby, I realistically need $404.02 to actually make that transaction go through. But you'd figure that out fairly quickly yourself as well. The other aspect of this, and the one that even if you weren't going to race and you weren't going to breed and you weren't going to own horses that you would care about, is the Crown Balance tab. Page looks almost the exact same. You got fund and you've got withdrawal. So if you bought Crown from, I think it's the pools on Orca, but you can do a lot of Jupiter trading. I've got the bird's eye page for Crown pulled up here. I don't know why my internet is as bad as it is, but it is. So bear with me while this loads. We'll see the current price. We'll see if is Crown higher right now or at the end of the stream. We can get bets in the chat. We're at 21 cents, almost 22 cents. In my opinion, again, not financial advice, it's really rallied pretty well in the last 2 or 3 days. It certainly wasn't as high as it was, but that was when all the news was breaking about the game. It looks like it's the number one trending coin on the Salami blockchain. Again, I'll get this disclosure out of the way. As a stable, we're not the biggest investors in Crown. That doesn't mean I don't believe in Crown. That doesn't mean I don't think the price of Crown is reflective of its value. What it means is if I was to buy Crown, there's a decision point that means if I'm buying Crown, I'm doing less on in-game assets, whether that's buying horses, entering larger races, buying horses off the marketplace. The way our stable is set up, it's much more effective for us to invest in-game assets, leave the Crown to the professionals out there, and try not to dump big balances on you guys, because if Crown does well, we do well as racers as well. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship in that sense. So we've seen how you top up your Derby balance. We've seen how you top up your Crown balance. I see Lacey in the chat says credit card is currently disabled as BMO Breeze work on some issues, FYI. Yeah, and that can be true, and that would be like the best way to have kind of true Web 2 experiences. You can use a credit card to buy Derby, and that has worked in the past. I have no reason to believe it won't be functioning again soon. But certainly, I know there's a lot of ETH maxis and Salami haters, but honestly, guys, Solana is a better UX, both from a wallet standpoint, from a latency standpoint, from a fee standpoint. You want to talk about decentralized and all of those types of things, that's a different conversation. But from a Web3 gaming standpoint, there's probably not a better blockchain to be participating in than the Solana network. And I think MakerDAO's announcement in the last 2 days, even though it's a fork of the network, suggests that people are starting to see the light as a app chain. It is pretty stupendous. That is the end of my commentary on blockchain, though. When we're on the Crown fund withdrawal, same thing as what you saw with your Derby balance. If you wanted to fund your wallet, funding your wallet with respect to Crown means you'd bought, again, through Jupiter probably, and you could deposit your Crown. Again, the max withdrawal is 30,000 Crown. I don't think there's a max on how much you can deposit. You would select your Solana wallet, or I guess Slope and Solfair are wallet options as well. I think most people would use Phantom or Backpack, which isn't an option here as it stands. You would deposit that as a person that is participating in Crown. Then you would go to the tracks tab here, so fifth from the top. there are 6 tracks. Oops. I don't even know what I clicked on. Oh, I went to Churchill Downs. I didn't mean to do this, but yeah, not a bad partnership if you're trying to be legitimate in Web3 racing to have Churchill Downs as an official partner. Let's go back to tracks. There are 6 tracks. Spoiler alert, 5 of the 6 look the exact same, even though one's in Japan, one's in California, one's in Hong Kong, one's in Florida, and one's in Australia. But the reason there are 5 options for you, again, the Churchill Downs one is private to them, and it only hosts the Kentucky Derby at this time. But you can stake your crown, which here, I'll even do some for you because I haven't done any yet. But what you can see is the total stake. So there's 5.3 million staked at this is not for kids. I could call this first word something. Second track is Golden Empire Casino. Third, Shing Moon, maybe. Third or fourth, Third Time Raceway, and then Victoria Racecourse. You have the option. You can do all. You can do 1. You can do 2 out of 5. Whatever you want to do with your available crown. So we've got 2,400 crown. Let's stake it at a track. I can see the number of people staking. I can see the total balance at each track staked. So the most staking is being done at the Japanese track. The least staking is being done at the Hong Kong track. So if I want to participate where there's the least amount of crown staked, I would go here. You can also see what they're yielding in the current season. And again, I will go back to home, and then I'll come back here to make sure that I even understand when the current season ends. So season 6 is August 28th through September 25th. So we're not even a week into it. And if you go back to tracks, again, this symbol, the silver one, is Derby. That's 80 to 1. If you have 80 Derby, you have $1. So you can see there's about 500,000 Derby that's been earned by stakers at that track in about a week's time. And those yields aren't exactly equal. That depends on which tracks have races run, how many entrants are in a race. So track yield is based on the number of entrants times 20% of the buy-in. So if a race has 14 possible entrants and 4 people race in that, they're only collecting rake on the entry fees of 20% of those 4, not 20% of 14. So if you go to Third Time Raceway and the similar race lobby exists, the 14 horses possible and 12 horses are in that race, that track is earning a rake of 20% of the entry fee on 12 entrants at that point. This is not me saying this track is better than the other track. Certainly every one of these tracks has probably had 12 out of 12 horses in them several times this season. It's just an example of how that works. So if I go to crown staking, I can see, bear with me, I don't know if anybody can hack my wallet based on keystrokes, but hats off to you if you can, I guess. So now if I reload the page, my wallet, or I guess I can connect it. I logged into it on Magic Eden, or sorry, Phantom. That's not the one I want. That's really interesting. Okay. Sorry about that. This is why people prep for these types of things, and I just wing it. Okay, now I've got the wallet I want up here. It's got Crown. I can do basically 600 a piece. Is that right? No, that's not right. See, I'm not even good at math. 500, 500, 500, 500, and 388.08. Update my stake. Tells me what I'm trying to do. I had 0 staked previously. Again, this is not a shot at Crown. We can best use our funds by participating in the in-game assets. But now we've staked at all of the tracks, and I tried to do basically about as equal as I could. A little bit short on Victoria. But now I would get, based on my 500 crown as a portion of 5.3 million. I realize that is a very small fraction, doesn't even register. My stake is effectively equal to zero. I got 0.01% here, so we'll make it someday. I swear we'll make it. But that is crown staking in a nutshell. And again, that is applicable if you're not trying to trade crown, but are a believer in crown and the utility of crown and the yield of crown. Holding crown in your Phantom wallet doesn't earn you a yield in and of itself. You benefit from the price going up. But if you want to earn a yield, you would have to go in game, go to tracks, deposit your crown, and then add it to the tracks and update your stake. Importantly, season 6 enrollment ends September 7th, so you've got about 5 days to do this. And then even if you bought 100,000 crown on September 8th, you still have 100,000 crown. No one's taking that away from you, but you cannot stake it in the season 6 season. You could start staking at the start of season 7 at that point. And another important part of this is you can reduce your stake at any time. I mean, speaking candidly, we saw some of this when crown ran up from, call it 5 cents to 41 cents. If you reduce your stake, you lose your season payout. So you can see here, and again, this, if I refresh it, probably update. But let's say I'm making $1 between these two tracks since I staked. Let's say that played out and I had much more crown than I did. Let's say I was making $1,000 in the USDC equivalent. If I withdraw before the end of the season, that $1,000 goes away, but I get my crown. So if you see the run up in crown price and you decide, you made the decision that crown at this price is worth more to me to be able to sell than the yield I'm making on the track, you can reduce your stake whenever. That's probably it for crown for me. So we talked about how you deposit Derby and crown, how do you stake your crown, how do you redeem your tickets, how to interact with the Phantom wallet within Photo Finish Live. Let's say you've deposited your Derby balance. Again, it sounds like credit card transactions are coming back. The Solana transactions work great. It's a 1% fee. That is what it is. I think it's the BMO that is taking the 1% fee, not Photo Finish. The next places you would probably look are the marketplace. So this is the in-game marketplace. There's 5% transaction fee on the buyer of a horse as opposed to the seller. That hasn't changed. It seems unlikely that it would change. So again, we're on marketplace. We're within here. There are several quick filters, whether that's foals, racing, or retired. So if you want to see what's racing eligible now, this would give you all the 2-year-olds from crop 1, but it would also give you the 6-year-olds that are the Gen 0. So 2-year-old would be crop 1 in this season. Gen 0 would be age 6. Right now, they're kind of racing in segmented populations. We can get into that a little bit. That's probably a little bit higher than PFL 101, but we can talk about it a little bit. So yeah, I could switch to retired and see these would all be Gen 0s because no crop 1s have been able to be retired yet. And I could see foals. Foals meaning horses that have been born but are not yet racing eligible. So there would be an age 0 for some, and there would be an age 1 for some. Horses are eligible to race at 2 years old. They are eligible to retire at 3 years old. They can race through their 8-year-old season. They live until they are 25. Gun to my head, I don't know if that means they can breed when they're 25, if they're dead when they're 25. Maybe someone in the chat can answer that. I do not know the answer to that. But I guess that's a decent segue to say that even if they're not racing, there are plenty of value propositions associated with the Gen 0s. Again, these would be the ones that are age 6 now. When we get to September, what was it, 25th was the date? Wait for my hideous internet. September 26th would be the start of the next season. Gen Zeros would then be 7 years old. The crop one that I've referred to, the first foals that were born that are racing eligible now, would be 3 years old. Crop 2, which was born the season later, would be 2. They would become racing eligible. And the ones that you're seeing that are 0 years old, again, here in early part of September, age 0, that would be crop 3. They would still be, even on September 26th, they would be basically a full month away from being able to race. So age impacts valuation. Some of that is speculation. Some of that is common sense. If you can race a horse now and crown is 22 cents now, each race awards crown based on the number of entrants in that race. So it's kind of a bird in the hand versus two in the bush type situation when you're looking at this age 0 filly full of Snowball, which I think is a YSM horse listed for 4,000 USDC or 320,000 Derby. It's an S from, they have a really nice S- filly. I know that's going to be part of it, but what is the sire on this one? Dozer. If you've listened to previous streams, I say Dozier. Brian Dozier was a second baseman for the Minnesota Twins for the longest time. Played at Southern Miss. I think went on to play for the Phillies. It's probably Dozer, like bulldozer, which I don't like. So I'm just going to keep saying Dozier. And until Ghost shows his face on the stream, he can't correct me. So we're going with Dozier. Really nice colt. It's got S+ speed, S+ stamina, S+ finish. Most of the ones from 1 of 1s have a subgrade lower in temper. We'll talk about what all that means. Again, this is not me advocating for the horse. What we did is we went to Marketplace. We can use quick filters to try to figure out if we're interested in foals. Again, something that's not racing eligible now that could be racing eligible as quick as September 26th or as long as the following season, which is probably like, call it October 20th, something like that. We can look at what's racing now. You want to buy a horse so you can race now. Now there's some that are exhausted, which means they can't race this second, but they can race in a day. And there's some that are ready to race. There's probably recovering in here, but if I scroll, they probably wouldn't be able to find one. So it's probably not worth our time scrolling. We'll talk about these things. And if you want to buy retired, again, the easiest value prop in retired is probably buying a mare or a brood mare. Brood mare literally just means it's already pregnant. Someone that owned it decided to breed it because the breeding window closes tomorrow, I believe. So they didn't want to wait till the last second to breed. That makes sense. If you were to buy Macarena, age 6 brood mare, 2 stars on right, 2 stars on turf, 1.5 stars on soft. You can see the stat attributes here, its record and its price. If you were to buy Macarena because it's pregnant, because it's a brood mare, not only would you get Macarena, and you could breed Macarena when Macarena was age 7 again, and age 8 and age 9 and age 10 and age 11, and I'm not going to keep going, but you get the drift there. But you would also get the full that is associated with the age 6 season. So I can click into Macarena. I can go to the ledger tab and I can see, yes, the last transaction was it being listed for sale, but I should also be able to find that it was bred with Walter White. It was bred with Walter White on 8/28. That is definitely within this season. And then I can go to Walter White if I want to. See this pretty solid A+ RTS filly, in my opinion, bred with Walter White, which kind of, Ghost's going to hate me, but was kind of definitively the best RTS colt from a Gen 0 standpoint. So not only are you getting, let's go back to it. Not only are you getting Macarena itself for $195,000, you're getting the full from Macarena and Walter White, which he paid about $300 or $32 or was it 25,000 Derby to breed. So there's some added value there. Again, that's not an endorsement for buying Macarena. That's not an endorsement for Walter White. As a reminder, we have 0 horses on the marketplace currently. Just trying to talk you through some of the thought processes so it's associated with this. We talked about the quick filters of Foals Racing Retired. There are more filters. So when you have the quick filter in, it's going to default to that. I can delete that. It'll give me everything. There are more filters. If you want to look at only females versus males, again, that's not a quick filter, but it's a filter that exists. If you're trying to dominate a specific archetype, again, this is one we compete in. I'm not advocating for right turf firm, but I can apply filters to say I only want to look at right turf females. Again, soft or firm isn't a filter in this. It treats those as kind of neutral, so you get both of those. But this would be a population of all females that prefer turf, that prefer turning right, regardless of age. Then I can go to the retired filter. I can go to the racing filter, which there probably won't be that many. And then I can go to the Foals filter for horses that will come to the track, again, at varying times. Age 0 is, call it, almost 2 months. Age 1 is September 26th that they can race. Let's see where we go next. Recent sales. This is always good. If you played the other game, you probably realized list price is probably not as relevant as what actually has been selling. As of now, recent sales, I think, only gets you to the past 7 days of activity. I don't know. That's why it's not even scrolling from right. It used to be 7 days. Is there a condition filter though, Lacey? Sorry, I don't want to sidetrack too far, but just seeing the question in the chat. Pull it up on the screen so you don't think I'm completely talking to myself here. Condition filter gives you soft or firm in the marketplace. I didn't think it existed. Oh, you're right. It's at the top. Closed circuit to the team. Condition preference should probably be somewhere down by surface preference and turn preference. And you could probably put youngest age close to oldest age. Some minor, easy UX updates, I think, in that sense. But yeah, I missed it. So you really could have, to Lacey's point, you could have done right, turf, firm, gender, fillies. So you can join the cool kids at our RTF if you want to by using that filter. Again, not advocating for it. Let's see what I pulled up here. Oh, I meant to pull up recent sales. I thought this went for 7 days. I don't know if it's because the volume is very high or my crappy internet is not allowing me to scroll past what happened barely over 24 hours ago. I do think there's something or an opportunity for either the team or a third-party tool to take this and run with it. It would be really nice to be able to do more with this page, because all you can do currently is you can click on K. Kirk from Crimson Racing selling his horses. He's a quick flipper, the opposite of how he played the other game. But you can see the price, the date, and who the buyer and the seller were. And you can click onto the horse and you can see all the details behind the horse that we saw on some of the other stuff. But, and I'll pull one up here. It would be nice if there were filters associated with this page that would say, I want to see what fillies have sold that are S- fillies or S fillies or RTF fillies or RTF colts or LDS colts. And those acronyms, again, I'm trying to remember this is supposed to be a PFL 101. So there are at least 8 archetypes. Some people want to tell you there's less. Some people want to tell you there's 24. I have less issue with people telling you there's 24 of them than I do with people saying there's only 4. I'm pulling up a Power BI that is done by I'm going to butcher the name again, Gavoni, and he's got a partner, Gap Data. They also have a Discord. Hop in there, ask questions, maybe give suggestions on what you'd like to see on the site. But as it exists, this is probably the best way to kind of use, I'll call it like a Wikipedia of the horse populations that exist. I personally, myself, do not put a lot of weight on the gap rank or the distance ranks. I kind of understand what they're trying to accomplish on what horse is the best 4 furlong horse, which horse is the best 9 furlong horse. Again, myself personally, I'm using this as I want to understand the population of horses that exist at something, and then I can understand how I want to attack that situation. So when we talk about, at a minimum, in my opinion, 8, not 4 archetypes, that is right, turf, firm being one. It's going to take a little bit for it to load. Right, turf, soft would be a second one. Right, dirt, soft would be a third one. Right, dirt, firm would be a fourth one. And you guessed it, you could do left for all of those 4 and you get to 8. And then what you could do, especially if you play the other game, is you could kind of assume, in my opinion, that there are distance funnels that would be 4 furlongs to 6 furlongs, 7 furlongs to 9 furlongs, 10 furlongs to 12 furlongs. And there are horses that, Gen 0 horses that excelled in those distance funnels. And that's why I would say, if you want to tell me that you wanted a left dirt firm, the other game called it marathoners. I don't love the term marathoners. I'm open to other suggestions on the name. I prefer we make our own names. But a left turf firm or left dirt firm horse that prefers to run 10 furlongs, which is also the Kentucky Derby distance. You could start by the 10 furlong rank. Again, I'm not putting a lot of weight in the ranking here. Our horse is listed. Apollo is there. We talked about, I'm going to say Dozier because it's fun for me to say. Pellener Fields was an old horse of ours. That is Balthazar, absolute gem of a guy, willing to help you out. Hopefully streams a little bit more himself. Swift Sapphire, I would definitely have to shout out the Big Brain Stables. Has been really instrumental in this game getting to where it's gotten, and they've really designed their stable setup to benefit all of you, including myself. So the TLDR on Big Brain Stables is they have 3 stables. They're labeled as right turf, right dirt, and left dirt, but they really have horses in all the 8 archetypes, and they really have horses at all different levels. So where the GBGs of the world really chose right dirt, and he's got some left dirt as well and some right turf. He's expanding, but his biggest presence is at right dirt, and it's at the S or S plus level. People like, and again, David's in the chat, he's done it to a lesser extent as well, but people like Big Brain and David have basically provided you racing volume, racing liquidity, because they have a horse for every race. Our stable is reasonably well sized as well. We're only competing in 3 archetypes. That's left dirt firm, that's right turf firm, and that is left turf soft. But you can use this gap data tool to hone in on what you should be looking for. And again, anytime you filter, it's going to change your count on the top left. So right now there are 7,600 horses that exist. I think that's slightly less than the number of the horses in the other game. And these horses all die when they're either 25, 26. We'll get that answer eventually. Maybe I can put it in the comments in the show notes that will be recorded to YouTube. But within that, you can filter by those archetypes. You can filter by sex. You can filter by grade. I think most people are aware of a grading system, and I know it's not the most common in America because I never got any S's on my report cards, not because I wasn't a decent student, but because our grading system in a school setting tops out at A+, but the grading system for horses that exists currently tops out at S+. There is room for, let's check to make sure I get this one right. I'll go to the breeding barn to try to be able to breed with a colt that is, grade SSS plus. We're a long ways from there. Right now we are at S plus. The next subgrade up from that would be SS minus, then SS, SS plus, then SSS minus, then you get the 3 above that. What I would share is in the 2 long betas that this game went through, we got through, I'm going to say like rough numbers of 30 seasons in the betas. In beta V2, we didn't get a single SS minus. The best horses were S plus, which are the same types of horses that exist now in the live game. In V1, in like the last season or the second to the last season, we got an SS minus, but there was only one of them. Now, I think we are seeing, this is my own opinion, this is not a statement of fact, I think we're seeing an easier road to be able to breed up than what we saw in V1 and V2. Again, I'm saying beta V1 and beta V2. It's not yet known, even if I'm right, if that's attributed to the stats being aligned across kind of a horse in a given archetype. So we'll try to get through these somewhat quickly. I'm being respectful, but it's already been 45 minutes. But there are one-of-one sires that exist. And this is when I put everybody to sleep. Let's see if I can find a few quickly. Let's do left, dirt, firm, because I will know a few of these. This is our horse, not advocating for you to breed with it. This is our horse, not advocating for you to breed with it. When you hear people say one of one, or they use the term 9921, 9922, 9923, 9924, 9925, or they use the terms Ziggy, Astro, Scuba, Ticket Taker, and At the Track, or Ticket Window and At the Track. They're referring to within the bloodline of all the Gen Zero tickets, initially when they were tickets before they were horses, they were the PFPs themselves. So you maybe bought some PFPs because the PFPs yield crown. So I know, because I've played the game far too long, far too much, that the one on the stud side that looks like a scuba diver is Scuba, which is also 9923 is the serial number, which is also a one of one. So without knowing that this was Scuba or 9923, you would see here by quickly clicking on the bloodline, you'd see the rarity 1. All 5 one-of-ones have a rarity of 1. So if you click on the bloodline, someone asks you how many one-of-ones are in the horse you're interested in, you could see the stud. If it's a bred horse would have 2 sets of parents, right? Because you would have the Gen 0 mare and the Gen 0 colt. And in that case, there could be 2 one-of-ones in it already. So that was Scuba. Scott Street, shout out to Rollo, Hollywood Stables. This is Ziggy. He's the guy that looks like he's a rock star, not to rip off Workday for their recent advertising. Again, it says Rarity 101. So Ziggy, the rock star, 9921. Yukon. This is Astro. Again, Rarity 1, serial 9922. Looks like an astronaut. The one-on-ones do exist on the mare side, but the way they were used, they're less relevant to the conversation. When we talk about how many one-on-ones you're using, it's really a conversation of what is your next step in the breeding process, or if you're a colt, who and how many people would be willing to breed with you. You inbreed if you use the same bloodline in any of these, call it 3 tables. So I'll come back to that, I promise. Oh, no, I can do it now. If I go to an actual bred horse, let's pull up Aped In. Again, this is ours. It's not for sale. I can see it bred with Apollo, which we showed you, which was the Scuba, which was 9923 Rarity 1. The mare was Ape. That is Rarity 1, so another 1 of 1, 9922 Astro. So when people talk to you about how many 1 of 1s, Aped In is a 1-year-old colt that has 2 1 of 1s in its bloodline. Aped In as a colt can breed to Gen 0 or Gen 1 fillies, but if the Gen 1 or Gen 0 filly wants to avoid inbreeding, they would need to make sure that their own filly doesn't already have Scuba, doesn't already have Astro in the bloodline until it falls off the page. So the next breeding that we do will push these over. Apollo will be a grandparent, and then 9923 will be a great-grandparent. If you can see it on the screen, it's inbreeding. There is also a tool from the breeding reports. If you have 20 of the PFPs and you verify using Matrica, they'll give you a breeding report that will show you if you're inbreeding or not. I can try to show you one of those. Again, 20 PFPs is a very sizable financial commitment. If you're trying to be a racer, you have to do the determination yourself of, is having 20 PFPs inhibiting my ability to race? If you're a stable of our size, of course not. It's the cost of doing business. If you're a small stable, absolutely that is inhibiting. So here's a breeding report of Trotsky and Anna. Trotsky, I believe, is Grape Syndicate, Riptide in the chat. Anna is an RTS of ours. Like I said, we really only compete in 3 archetypes: LDF, RTF, LTS. What I didn't say in that is RTS, which is what Trotsky is, which is what Anna is. We just happen to have 2 of them. We've bred them to try to make Anna firm a few times, but sometimes it just makes more sense for us to breed it to an RTS to try to make it the most marketable piece, whether or not we're going to keep that piece in our stable or have plans to race or breed with it. But this is what one breeding report looks like. If I ran a breeding report with Anna, which again is our filly, so we control, we have the 20 PFPs, we can run breeding reports. You get 10 breeding reports for each filly you have in your stable, regardless of age, per season. So if you have as many fillies as us, chances are you can run reports to your heart's content. But it tells you the range of outcomes again. So box and whisker charts. If you don't know what a box and whisker is, the box itself represents 50% of the range of outcomes. So 50% of the time the breed this happens, the start will fall probably between, let's call it A plus and an S minus. Above the box is a whisker, and the whisker represents 25% of the total outcomes, with only one outcome being the end of the whisker, same on the bottom end. So 25, the full whisker is 25% of the outcomes. The worst possible outcome is the whisker. It tells you what range of outcomes you can have for what preferences this horse will have. So again, these are both RTS pieces. So these bars are ranges, and when it's a line like this, that means there's no range. A foal from Trotsky and Anna is going to result in having 2.5 soft. So again, starting at the midpoint would be 0 left, 0 right. Midpoint would be 0 dirt, 0 turf. Midpoint would be 0 firm, 0 soft. If it was right here, or sorry, that was 1, or sorry, 2. I screwed up. So if it was here, like the end of this range of outcomes, the low end of the range for this breed would be 0.5 turf. The high end of the range would be 2.5 turf, and it can fall anywhere in between there. Going up to right versus left, the low end of the range it's going to be at worst a 1-star right. The best outcome is that it's a 3-star right, and it can fall anywhere in between there. It's not a box and whisker chart to tell you what percent of the time it's 2.5 or 2 or 1.5. And then, like I said, on soft and firm, I'll clean it up because I made a mistake. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2. So this would be 2-star soft every time. We pulled up the breeding report because we wanted to look at inbreeding. So the hypothetical foal from Trotsky and Anna, the serial numbers on the grandparents. So this is no different than, where did I lose my horse to? Sorry, Daddy. So if I go to Bloodline, this table, which has a better UX, is no different than the table you see here in true table format. I can show you one. I have to find it that I inbred on purpose, and I did so, as I like to say, for science. So Grace, I think this is the right one. Go to Bloodline. Yes, Grace is an A+ filly, age 6, broodmare, meaning she's pregnant already. These are the stats. Someone in the chat remind me we still need to talk about the stats. If we don't, we probably should talk about the stars themselves and the difference between, I would consider, absolute stars and then radials on the stats. But I can see, again, rarity 1 means 1 of 1. You hadn't seen this one previously because we'd only looked at 3, but this is the ticket window one. As a rule of thumb, if the PFP has a background that is not a color, it has an actual background, it is a 1 of 1. It's the easiest way to look at it. Again, it's the Bloodline tab within the horse page. So I can switch over to the Progeny tab, which means what horses has this horse helped create. If it was a colt, it would give you all of the colts or offspring it's sired. If it's a mare, it would give you all the foals it's dropped. Saving Grace, maybe not aptly named in this sense, but it has 1 win and 3 starts. The sire was Pluto. The mare was Grace. We were just on Grace. You can see in the grandparent section, this same PFP, rarity 1, background that is not a color, occurs. This is an inbreed. It wouldn't matter. It would not matter if this one was over here and this one was here. It's not in a line. It's if they're anywhere on the screen, it's inbreeding. So if you bear with me, I will pull up the breeding report to show you one of an inbred, but it's going to take me a second because we've run a few hundred reports. So I'm looking for the breeding report of Grace and Pluto. Again, Grace the mare, Pluto the stud. Both of those are from 9924, ticket window, ticket taker. Rarity 1 means it's from a 1 of 1. Let's go up 1. Got it. So let's compare these two. We already looked at the Trotsky and Anna one. Let's pull up Grace and Pluto side by side. Now, these are different horses. They're different sires. They're different archetypes. One's an RTS, right turf soft. One's an LTS, left turf soft. So I'm not expecting them to look the same. Anna's only an A. Grace is an A+. But you can see when we talk about box and whiskers, again, 50% of the outcomes fall within the box, 25% to the right of the box, 25% to the left of the box. It does not take a rocket scientist to realize the whiskers, so again, 25 percentile outcomes, are wider for the inbreed. Now, some are wider to the good, but maybe some aren't. Like Hart, if I look at Anna and Trotsky, I would say this is a pretty wide whisker to the good. Probably wider than the one for Pluto and Grace. But I can say fairly unequivocally that the whiskers to the downside are almost always wider. And we're inbreeding on purpose, partially because we have enough horses that we can afford to do it. I would not recommend doing it. This outcome itself was not a disaster by any means. Let me see if I can find you the horse. Too many tabs open. Someone that streams more would not do that. So if I go to Saving Grace, when we look at breeding outcomes, the rule of thumb, this is not absolute, but the rule of thumb is that you're going to see averaging occur, both averaging in the preferences, averaging in the global grade, and averaging in the stack grades. So global grade means Grace is an A+. That is her global grade. But Grace herself has S- stamina. That is a stack grade. So she can be an A+ and still have A temper, S- finish, S- stamina. Again, the stack grades are helpful in the sense of distance preference. So if you wanted to create the world's best sprinter, your best stats probably are start, speed, maybe heart, and maybe temper. Again, at least anecdotally, stamina is not as important in a sprinter. And if you wanted to make your best marathoner, you probably don't care as much about start. Speed's good everywhere. Heart's good everywhere. Temper's good everywhere. But stamina and finish is what would help make an elite marathoner. And just a quick rundown of the stats that aren't super obvious. Again, I think start and finish are somewhat obvious. It's how a horse starts the race. Finish is how a horse ends the race. Speed plays everywhere. Speed is kind of a universal attribute. It's a great one to have. Stamina is a longer distance preferring attribute. Finish is a longer distance preferring attribute. Heart is kind of a competitive edge, is how it's been described. And again, all of this is in that Learn to Play tab on the left side. There are some theories about heart, but if anybody tells you they have heart solved, they're probably lying. As it was described by the team as it was being developed, heart kicked in on a multitude of factors. Field size. So a race that had 12 horses in it has more horses in a race than 4 horses in a race. A race with 20 has more horses than the one with 12. So the more horses, the more impact heart has. We also were told entry fee was likely a factor in this as well. So right now entry fees range from, I don't even know what the low end is. Let's call it $5, probably a little bit less than that, to the high end of $200 now that we have, which I love. If we want to go higher on entry fees, I'll still enter horses. So maybe Grace wouldn't care as much about a $5 race, but she cares a lot about a $200 race. Sounds a lot like me at like a craps table or a blackjack table. So higher heart and a higher entry fee makes sense. And then the third area where it plays as well, again, this has been recounted by the team, but no one's got it correct necessarily, is probably the race type itself, which is probably a good segue that I need to talk about race type, but we will finish the rest of this before we get there. Temper is sort of a consistency of its peak performance rating. So anybody that's come from the other game has probably told themselves at least at one time that they want the lowest temper because they wanted the highest variance horse. It was very good in the other game. You either won or you lost. If winning a race gets you 60% of the pot, you're fine losing 2 out of 3 times or 3 out of 4 times, whatever that ends up being. It's not the exact same here because it is a consistency rating that starts at peak performance and then works down from there. It doesn't give you a better run if you have low temper. It just means you run your best less frequently. There are some incredibly sharp people in the community that still, knowing all of that, and they know it as well as I do, if not better, shout out to Golden Stables, that prefer temper to be the lowest of their racing stats. And I would even try to nudge him to say he means in Gen 0 horses. He doesn't mean that. He would correct me on that, but I will show you why we disagree on this. but explain both arguments on it. So he's got a horse. Oh, not in his stable. He also runs JPEG Lord stables. Closer to the top of the leaderboard there. He's got a horse named Mundo. And we will do Mundo side screened against, or split screen against Walter White, which we've already shouted out earlier. That is Breaking Bad stables, currently managed by Soulmate Stables. Let's see if I can find Breaking Bad. It was right in the middle of the screen. That would have been helpful to just, click on it. Breaking Bad's got some monsters. Our own stable doesn't have any S pluses. What did he have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 S pluses. So shout out to the enormity of success there. But we were going to bring up Walter White and we were going to bring up Mundo. And I bring these up because they're probably the two most dominant RTS Gen 0 horses that exist. And the reason Ghost, again, from Golden Stables, also runs JPEG Lord, likes a lower temper. And again, it doesn't mean it's the vanilla bean of the game because it doesn't also have the upside that you get when you have variance. It just is a consistency rating and everything works from the top, the best performance down. So if your best performance isn't better than the other horses, where in the other game, Vanilla Bean's best performance was better than almost any other horse in the game, at least when I was still playing. If Mundo is an S minus, or let's call it an A plus, it doesn't matter if he's got B temper, highly variable horse, he's still an A plus. Like, he's not going to, in that case, beat S pluses in all likelihood. So the difference between these two horses, preferences are more or less the same. Looks like there's an extra half star on turf for Mundo. That's about as close as it gets in comparison. There's discussion of total boosts when it comes to Gen Zeros. All I'm going to go into that is when you see the generation of the horse here, when you're clicking on the horse page, there is a drop down there for Gen Zeros. This tells you how many points were on the ticket. Again, a horse that was from a 1 of 1, unless it had a matching 1 of 1. So ticket window sire with ticket window dam, which exists, named Churro in the game. They're the only ones that would have matches because those match 5 things. They match the background, they match everything about those ones. If you're from a 1 of 1, there's no matching attributes, and I mean attributes. So like horse coat, background, hair, shirt. There's no match here. So if there was no match, you got 0 temper. If there was 1 match, you got 1 temper. If there was 2 matches, you got 2 temper. If there was 3 matches, you got 3 temper. And you thought I was going to keep going on that same trajectory, but actually, if you had more than 3 matches, you still only got 3 temper. Again, the rest of the stats are the ones we talked about: start, speed, stamina, finish, heart, temper. And you can see based on the revealed stats. Again, stats only reveal when a horse is retired. But the revealed stats do, in essence, very much mimic what the Gen 0 point totals were. So its best 2 stats for Walter White were stamina and finish. His only 2 S plus stat grades were stamina and finish. 2s everywhere else except for temper. The other 2s got S's. Temper you probably actually would have expected to get S minus. And we'll get into that and why we think Ghost thinks that Mundo is a better asset, because if they all start with the same raw tools, these are very similar rarity horses. So if I go to the bloodline, this is rank 1 rarity, again, a 1 of 1, ticket window, 9924. This is rank 1 rarity. We haven't talked about this one, but this is either jockey or at the track, 9925. The rarity on the filly is 107 on the Mundo side. I get that's probably not showing up on the screen. I apologize for that. You can review that on your own time. The rarity on the mare side is 140 for Walter White. Generally speaking, rarity of the parents has mattered. And again, this only matters for Gen 0. It doesn't matter once we've got bred horses. There's no rarity for a Gen 1 breed. So the better the rarity, the better the asset. And you can see based on the totals of of points here, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. So 9, 11, 13, and then add in the total number of stars, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is an S20. If you hear people say S20, that means it has a global grade of S and it has 20 total boosts, counting the stack grades and the number of stars combined. Walter White has 2, 4, 7, 10, 12, 17, 18 and a half. So Mundo has more total boosts. It's an S20 versus an S18. It has A plus temper versus S temper. I told you temper meant work from the top down, meaning the higher the temper, the more often you run at your max performance. If the max performance of an S18.5 and an S20 is about the same, Walter White is going to run better than Mundo more often than not because Mundo's temper is lower. That does bear itself out in the career summary. These horses would have raced against each other a ton of times. Walter White won 12 out of 31 starts. Mundo only won 6 out of 41 starts. Got second a lot of times, and if I had to guess, he got second to Walter White a lot of times. But when we move forward and say, if he's got A plus temper here, and these horses are more or less equal, again, S20 meaning total boost, global grade of S, versus S18, to me, that's within a range of outcomes that's reasonable. These two horses would compete. If one won over the other, I wouldn't be surprised. If an S10 beat an S18.5, I would have been a little bit surprised. So there is a range of outcomes that's acceptable, and there's a range that it's harder to get your head around. We didn't see it very often. I'm not saying that it didn't work. But what Ghost's theory is and what he believes, and again, we've devolved into PFL like 701 again. I'm not the best 101 teacher. If the A plus exists for similar assets, that means it has better assets elsewhere, whether that's start, speed, stamina, finish, heart. Because these grades that you see, S plus, S, A plus, there are radials within those, meaning not all A plus stat grades are equal. There could be a high A plus stat grade. So let's say, for instance, if you want to go back to Madden ratings, that if the range of outcomes for A plus was 76 to 80 or 75 to 79, whatever you want to say, temper could be a 75. It could be a 79. We don't know that. And it's hard to know that other than the breeding reports maybe give you some indication. So Ghost's theory is that if this has only a 74 in temper and these are similar assets, then the rest of these, even if they both have S plus stamina and both have S plus finish, if he's taking a bath on temper, his stamina, even if they're the same in picture, both S plus, if the range of outcomes for S plus stamina was 95 to 99, Walter White's could be 95 and Mundo's could be 99, and Ghosts prefers the higher stamina, willing to sacrifice in temper. Again, that was a huge segue into PFL 701 at a minimum. You don't need to know that. You should ask questions. You should get a second opinion on everything that you ask questions about. There are tools that exist out here. We had talked about gap data originally. Drill in, filter for what you want. The best use cases of this are trying to segment the population to what's meaningful to you. So if I wanted to look at crop one horses that are racing now, I know crop one horses are 2 years old now. Again, ask questions if you don't know. And I'm racing in the right turf firm archetype. Again, that is one of mine. That doesn't mean it's better than the others. There are considerations about what archetypes are preferred or desirable. My hope is that we have people that like GVG, RVA Racing, the JJ, Secretariat, which is Mr. B, think they're going to join tomorrow for a quick follow-up on the roundtable. And we can talk about the considerations to be had within specific archetypes. But I use the gap data to filter for 2-year-olds, which is racing eligible horses in the RTF archetype I can see there's 208 of them. If I want to see how many S's, S pluses, and S minuses exist to say kind of what's the top end of that 228 total population look like, it'll recalculate. It'll show me there's 66. Again, within here, I can see the total number of preferences each of these 66 horses have. I can see their global grade, whether that's S minus S or S plus. Let's say, for instance, I don't care as much about S minus and I only care about S plus and S, the true top. Then there's only 21 of those. And again, you can still see it once it reloads. You can see the global grade. Shout out to She's the Boss. It's Secretariat Stables full of She's the One, and Depoison was the sire, I believe, on that one. You can see 2.5 right, 3.0 turf, 1.0 firm. Preferences, I do think, matter. We were counting them when we were counting up to S18.5 versus S20. One had a half star extra preference. Does a half star matter a ton? Probably not. Will it eventually? Probably. Right now, it doesn't. And that's why you would be able to see, in since we've been live, you've seen left dirt firm horses running in left turf soft sprints. Because each of these horses, again, if we go back to the two we had, I think I closed out of them. Hopefully you can rack your brain to remember that both Mundo and Walter White had S plus stamina, S plus finish. The rest were S's in large part, other than the A plus temper on Mundo. To me, that means both of those horses prefer to run a longer distance. Each of these archetypes have nuances to them. The TLDR and the, again, PFL 901 level is all of the LTS horses, again, left turf soft, generally speaking, preferred to run longer distances. And the stat grades themselves seem to be more important than the preferences. So even though a horse that was left dirt firm is running on turf and he's running on soft, so really of the left dirt firm, he's only using the left. The dirt and the firm aren't a penalty. They had been in V2. They're not now. But he's only benefiting from having that left preference. Whereas the LTS horses that are in that race are benefiting from all of them, left, turf, and soft on a left, turf, soft race. But at 4 furlongs for the Gen 0 horses, I would venture to guess you take similar assets, so that S20 or the S18.5 against each other. One's left dirt firm, one's left turf soft. You race them at left turf soft, for sure left turf firm, but left turf soft in a 4 furlong race. That LDF, even though it's not running on dirt like it likes, even though it's not running on firm like it likes, is going to win. So that goes back to the commentary about there's radials within stack grades. Could be a high S plus stamina, could be a high S plus finish. What stats are great for great distances? We talked about start is great for a sprint. Speed plays everywhere. Heart and temper play everywhere as well. But if a horse has great start, which LTS horses don't, those LDF horses can win those. Let's move back to PFL 101-ish. We'll go to the racing page. So the big differences between the other game and this game are plenty. You don't have to race against the same dominant horses forever. Those dominant horses can't breed and race at the same time. They have to make a decision. They can't even race for more than half their lifetimes. But maybe the bigger one is how races are cued or how races go. The other game had kind of a sit and go. I mean, I always considered it a sit and go thing, which was confusing because the community was always asking for sit and goes. But you had a set schedule of, there was always going to be a 2,600 meter, which in this case would be, maybe we don't even have it. So let's say 2,400 meter. I think that would be the 12 furlongs. Someone can do the math for me. I'm probably screwing that one up. A mile would be 8 furlongs. That's 1,600 meters. So 2,000 meters would be 10 furlongs. You get the drift there. But the other game had at different classes. Again, this has changed since I've left the game, but they tried to make a race for every horse, and once the race filled, the race would run. PFL works on a calendar schedule where there are options for all races. So you can see just looking at the screen. And again, I apologize, I'm not a pro streamer. I should have probably zoomed this in an hour ago or hour and 20 minutes in. But this saddle allowance race runs tomorrow at 9:06. If you want to run in it, you have 11 hours and 35 minutes to register. Normally registration closes about an hour or 50 minutes before the race runs. And it's an allowance race for horses that are non-winners of two, meaning the horse has not won two races. A horse that's won once can race there, but a horse that's won twice cannot. And it's for horses that are a maximum of B+. B- can race there, B's can race there. Allowance races carry weights dependent upon your accomplishments. Long term, the team understands that they need those accolades to be more of the non-winners of one or non-winners of two, and less about the global grades. And we'll get there eventually. But reading this in an allowance race, if you had a B-, you would have 10 pounds removed. So in an allowance race or a handicap race, all the horses start with an assumed 126 pounds. A normal racer would be 116 pounds. So this is saying a B- gets to subtract 10 pounds. So from 126, it goes down to 116. A B, which is the middle, would subtract 7 pounds. So that would be, oh my God, 117. No, 119. And then a B+ would subtract 5 pounds, which would race at 121 pounds. Now, these weights, if you're a traditional horse racing fan, these weights are big. Like making a 10-pound difference in a horse race is fairly substantial. I would just look at them in the standpoint of it doesn't really mean 10 pounds the way 10 pounds in real life does. A horse might fall over if it's carrying 10 extra pounds in real life. I don't know. It just means a measure of performance is reduced. If you want to look at this and say that 3 pounds are removed, 2 pounds are removed, 1 pound is removed, it's another way to look at it. It's proportional is the way to look at it. But weight certainly matters, and weight is a consideration in your race entry. So generally speaking, I think the consensus in the community is that each subgrade is roughly 2 pounds. So this race, in my opinion, now we're back to PFL 301 at a minimum. This race is exploitable because a B- carries 3 less pounds than a B, which means I told you each subgrade is about 2 pounds. So to do the math, to say like what would be a perfectly balanced race, it would be 10, 8, and 6. A B- carries 2 pounds less than a B, which carries 2 pounds less than a B+. But because a B- carries 3 less pounds than a B and 5 less pounds than a B-, all else equal, I think a B- is probably the best horse for this race. We see other ones where it's a range is wider. So this was B- to B+. Again, the low end of the range of this Thundering Herd Maiden is A-. The top end, the max global grade a horse can enter this race is S-. These are 2 pounds different, which to me means all else equal, each of those subgrades should have an equal chance of competing. Again, start at 126 pounds, take 9 off. That means an A- races at 117 pounds, an A would race at 119 pounds, an A+ would race at 121 pounds, and an S- would race at 123 pounds. Again, an equal race. I think I acknowledge more than almost anybody that the weights aren't the easiest thing to understand in the game. The good news is there are other race types that exist, and plenty of people that will answer your questions if you ask them. So just using the top 2 race types within this lobby, again, this is chronologically ordered. So the next race is 9, 9 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm in Minnesota, already doxed myself. Then we get a couple more that are 6 minutes later, 6 minutes later, 6 minutes later, all throughout the day. If you don't get 4 horses to register for a race, so right now this one has 2 out of 14. If it doesn't get to 4, it will cancel. If it gets to 4 out of 14, it'll run with 4 horses. If it gets to 10 out of 14, it'll run as 10 out of 14 horses. Why that matters is the crown gift, and a lot of people are excited about crown, so we'll focus on this for a little bit. The crown gift you see here, so 192.64, the next race is 59.50, is the assumption that the maximum number of horses possible enter. So if 14 horses enter this left turf firm, 40% is less than 50%. So if we're saying 50% is the median, anything less than 50% is assumed to be firm. Anything above 50% is assumed to be soft. Generally speaking, we don't have 50%. It's 20% increments. So there's 0%, which would be a high likelihood of firm. 20% would be a fairly high likelihood of firm, but also a chance at good being on the firm side of yielding. 40% would be most likely to be good. Probably the next most likely outcome would be yielding, which means truly neutral, not soft, not firm. 60% would be the most likely outcome of soft. Again, second most likely is probably yielding. Third most likely would be sloppy in that sense. 80% would be most likely to be sloppy. 100% most likely to be sloppy. Why that matters is those soft, firm stars. A condition of a track is neutral at yielding, which we talked about. It tends to favor firm horses with a good condition. It really favors firm horses with a fast condition. Use the opposite, also true. It tends to favor soft horses with a soft condition. It really favors soft horses with a sloppy condition. Preferences have mattered more and less throughout the entire life cycle of Beta V1, Beta V2, Beta V3, and live. Preferences will probably change again, but that's the current understanding of them, that the more firm stars you have, you actually get an increased benefit on a fast track more than you would have got on a good track, which is more than you would have got on a yielding track. You don't get a penalty for racing on soft or sloppy. You just aren't receiving the benefit of those firm stars. We were talking about race types, and then it's another Stenz segue. I said weights aren't the most intuitive, but they are on the screen. Other things that the team has done a great job with is they tell you how many eligible horses you have for each race. It doesn't mean I have a left turf firm horse. It means I have one horse that fits the other criteria of this race that can race here. I have 18 horses that could race here. Again, not necessarily 18 right turf firm horses that are at a maximum global grade of S-, but 18 horses that are S- or lower that are juvenile horses, or that crop 1, 2-year-olds. Juveniles means 2-year-olds. Anything else would be mature horses, 3-year-old and up, like the icon says here. So if you know horse racing at all, you know the highest stakes are grade 1, next highest grade 2, next highest grade 3. Those all exist here. There's also restricted stakes, which I would consider this. Restricted stakes that have been very helpful for users are kind of global grade restricted races, meaning in this summer breakaway stakes, no S plus can race here. The highest horse that can race here is a global grade of an S-. No horses carry weight in this race. So if 7 of these 8 are S-, they race at 116 pounds. If an A+ is that 8th horse, they also race at 116 pounds. So the A+ is by definition at a disadvantage. The A+ likely probably should not race in an S- max. They should try to find themselves either an A+ maximum restricted stakes race or an allowance race or a handicap race that would favor an A+. So again, grade 1 being the highest stakes. Again, entry fees can vary, but no restrictions. Any horse that's 3-year-old and up can race here. You could race a right dirt horse here if you wanted to. It's probably not going to win, but you could. No one carries any weight in that race. So we talked about Crown Gift as the assumption that every horse enters this race. So 14 horses enter this race. The Crown Gift, each horse that races in it receives is 192.64. Right now, if my other tab is still good, that is $42 of a gift and an entry fee of $85. So basically 50% of your entry fee is covered by the Crown Gift, even if 14 horses enter this race. I said the stated Crown Gift is dependent upon the number of entries, and any race will run if at minimum 4 horses enter a race. So in this case, you can see that if every horse entered the race, they would receive 192.64. Times 14 is the total crown allocated to that race. 2,700 crown is going to be paid out in that race if it runs regardless. If only 4 horses enter, the Crown Gift for each of the 4 horses is actually 674 crown. Take that times the current price of $21.81. If this race runs with only 4 out of 14 horses, each entrant receives in the equivalent of crown, which is a cryptocurrency that has price fluctuation, is not pegged to Derby or USDC. They would receive the equivalent at the time of filming this of $147. Again, their entry fee is $6,800 divided by 80 or $85. So take that. Each horse in that race, even if it got last, makes $62 profit. That's not considering the purse. If I click in this race lobby, I can click all of these info things. This is actually a qualifier race for the end of the week major. Each of the 4 archetypes, again, I still think there's 8, but each of the 4 archetypes has a major. As of now, they're slated to run 1 a week for each of the 4 weeks of the season. This past week that ended today was Right Dirt. So again, that's geared towards both Right Dirt Soft, RDS, and Right Dirt Firm, RDF. And we saw a Right Dirt Soft horse win, even though it was a fast condition. So you can win off preference. But if I click on the info, I can see the points for qualifying that are allowed. Again, this only matters for qualifiers. The 20 horses with the most points at the end of the week qualify for what this week will be a left turf major. Then I can see the max purse. Emphasis on max. This means if 14 horses entered the race, the winner would take 36,000 Derby, or a little bit more than that. Again, everything Derby is in divisible by 80 to be the actual USDC. So if 14 horses entered this race and a horse won that, they would get $456.96 returned to them. Again, some of their entry fee is included in that. And we talked about earlier, they would also get, in addition to that, 192.64 in crown, which we said was 192 times 0.2181. They would get $42 in crown plus their winnings of $456.96. So for an entry fee of $85, winning this race out of 14 horses would gross return roughly $500 to you. Now I can almost assure you that we won't see 14 horses in this race unless the viewership of this Spaces is incredible and everybody gets excited and buys horses and races them there regardless of whether or not they can win. Because we talked about it earlier, juvenile races are for 2-year-olds, 3-year-old and up. Right now only includes the Gen 0 horses. So even though the range is 3-year-old and up, The only horses that are 3-year-old and up are Gen 0 horses that are 6, because there's a gestation period for when you breed. So if you bred your Gen 0 colt and your Gen 0 mare together, you breed this season. That gives you, wait for it, that gives you a brood mare. You bred this season. Season ends on September 25th. You get a foal on September 26th. The foal is 0 years old. The next season rolls over. That same foal that was 0 is now 1. Another season rolls over. That foal that was 1 is now 2 and is racing eligible. It is a juvenile. So that's how you get from an age of 6 to the next horses being racing eligible, only being 2 now. So when the calendar flips to the next season, again, this is season 7 in that case, the juveniles will be the crop 2 horses. The second set of foals drop. What is now a juvenile, the 2-year-old, the crop 1 foals, the 2-year-olds, those will be 3-year-olds. So they will be able to race these 3-year-old up and up races. And the Gen 0s that are still racing will be able to race in the 3-year-old and up race. Aging matters. We've been told that a horse generally peaks from between 4.5 years old to 5.5 years old. Some peak earlier, some peak later. Some hold a peak longer, some hold a peak shorter. That is genetic. It is passed down. Anybody that tells you they've got it solved is lying. We didn't have aging in beta V1, beta V2. We didn't breed in beta V3. Aging was turned on briefly in V3. Aging was very important for the brief amount of time it was turned on in V3. It seems that, again, our only examples of aging being turned on, because Gen 0 horses, even if they still race, are not affected by aging, but which actually makes me think of something very interesting. Someone remind me, I thought of something interesting tomorrow that I hadn't really sussed out at all. But the horses that are crop 1 horses that are 2 years old, most of them are the least mature they're ever going to be. So you age up until you get to that 4.5 and 5 window. Again, that doesn't mean a horse can't reach peak age at 3-year-old. They just have a steeper climb up. They might have a quicker drop off. Maybe it's a super horse that stays in its peak for a long period of time. The point of this is, once these crop 1 horses become 3-year-olds, they're racing against the 7-year-old horse at that point. If we think horse peaks between 4.5 and 5.5, 7 is on the back slope of its career, 3 is on the come up. I think this consensus is we think 3-year-old horses will be better racers, but now you can maybe guess, if you're in the PFL 1101 class, that I'm wondering if Gen 0 horses are still pegged to 4.5 or 5.5-year-old peak. Maybe they aren't 7 years old, but again, that's PFL 1101. Let's get back to 101. So race cancels if it doesn't get 4 out of whatever. Again, a lot of races are out of 12. Bigger graded stakes are out of 14. We've had races that are out of 20. The majors are out of 20. At times, graded or grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 races have been out of 16, out of 18, out of 20. All you need to know is the crown gift is based on the total maximum entrance. The purse that you clicked on in a race lobby is the maximum purse. If only 4 horses enter this race, the winner is not getting the $336,000 Derby. It'll get 80%. The prize pool will be 80% of the entry fees. The winner takes 60% of the prize pool, more or less. God, I think that's pretty good. I know Mo is worried about failing the test. I think I would fail the test of all the things we've covered. Very appreciative of everybody that's joined. This has been 100 minutes, if you count the royalty-free music. That is hideous, but I don't take myself too seriously, so I still love it. I still use it. I'll still use it. Even if you gave me a donation, which I don't want, I'm still going to use the royalty-free music, so don't feel like you're going to give me a donation to make me turn it off. You're not saving yourself that quickly. Just tune in like 5 to 7 minutes after the start on the replay. So again, I appreciate all the live viewers. If you didn't catch it live, This was always designed to be a monologue. I can talk for twice as long as this. But the replay will be saved to our YouTube channel, and I think it'll be accessible on Twitch until we stream again. The plan, I believe, is to stream again tomorrow. So when I talk about get second and third and fourth opinions on things, and we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each archetype, where I compete in RTF, and I like RTF, which means right turf firm. GVG competes in RDF, RDF, and he can talk about the strengths and weaknesses there. My hope is that he joins for a little bit tomorrow. Mr. B, Secretariat, Stables, he's got horses everywhere. So we can talk about some of the stuff we discussed tonight, and then some of the more practical considerations about how people built their stables, what pieces are things that a new person should look for. We didn't cover that a lot today. The marketplace is full of possibilities. Again, like I said, if something's been listed for more than 30 minutes, chances are a lot of the OGs have seen it and they've decided it's not for them. It's a perfect reason for you to ask an OG or two what the strengths and weaknesses of the horse you're asking about are. Chances are, if you ask anybody that I mentioned in the stream tonight, they'll give you their best estimate, or they'll refer you to someone that might know that subject a little bit better. I don't give advice on right dirt firm because I don't know right dirt firm. I do happen to know some stuff about left turf soft, some right turf soft, some LDF, which is left dirt firm. So people are happy to help. The considerations you need to make, maybe even in advance of tomorrow's stream, if you're listening live, is what is your budget and what is your goals? It's very expensive to have the best horse in the game. And I would suggest that as it stands, there's really not crazy incentives to have the best horse in the game. If the max race entry fee now, and again, I would love for this to go up, but if the max entry fee now is $200 USDC, does having a horse that costs you several multiples of that make the most sense? Or does having 3 horses that are S minuses or S's, or 24 horses that are A pluses and A's, again, probably all cost about the same, those buckets of assets? Which one is the best return for you? And again, that depends on your objectives. Maybe you don't care about the most efficient way to returning equity. Maybe you care about, I'm going to fucking win this goddamn race and I don't really care. That's not me. I fit into the bucket just below that. We have a lot of really, really caliber horses, but if I go to our stable, we have 0 S pluses, and I have to live with that. But I think we'll wrap there. Again, appreciate follow, a like, retweet when I post the link down the YouTube, and then hope to get more people live tomorrow, not just me on the screen, not just others on the screen, but people that may have seen this from tonight and have questions. And I would love to be able to answer new people's questions in the chat tomorrow. So again, look for that. The hope is somewhere between 1 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. It won't be 4 hours long, but somewhere within that window. So again, appreciate each and every one of you. We're going to call it. See you guys later.